Welcome. We're going to wait just another few seconds for everyone to join us. All right. Well, welcome to the South Carolina webinar on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, competitive program with our state. And so this is our fourth installment of our Project Think Tank. So we're excited to have you with us this afternoon, and we're going to step through several pieces. Joining me on our call today is Kayla and Chanel with our office, and we'll be going through more details as we go through. So we look forward to having you here today. So, and I'm Rochelle Tolton, by the way. And I'm not sure how to advance slides, so I need to tell Chanel. Thanks. All right, so just in case you didn't notice, our webinar is being recorded. We hope to have it on our energy website later, once in the near future. We ask that you please use the chat feature to interact with us and others. And then if you do have questions, send those through the Q&A, and we'll get to them near the end of the webinar. We'll try to address those. We do want to hear from you. We feel like the South Carolina EECBG, or as we've said, the Energy Efficiency and Community and Conservation Block Grant Program, is very important to South Carolina. We'll go to the next one, please. All right, so we've already done our welcome and introductions. We're gonna do a little bit of an overview. Kayla and I will guide you through on the application guidance for round 3 and the form and the process that'll take place. We've also got some project ideas for you from those that have been completed from our earlier rounds, as well as the use of the Department of Energy's blueprints. And then we're going to take questions from participants if there's more to follow up, and we'll wrap and close after that. So if we can go ahead to the next slide, please. All right, we wanted to get to know you as who's here today. So Chanel, if you don't mind kicking off we're asking people, what types of organizations do you represent? So if you can just click on that button and submit it. I think everyone can see it. We'll give it a moment more. We've still got people joining us. Hi, Town of Somerville. Thanks for adding. All right, so looks like a pretty diverse group. We've got local government, which also can include education, and then of course some regional government and state government, and then other entities that are learning about our program. So, all right, that's great. So we can go to the next slide and see what else. So we also want to know how familiar you are with the South Carolina EECBG Competitive Program. So I'm going to read these because we found out in the recording people won't get to see this. So this is my first time learning about this program. I've learned some about the program in the past, and then we applied for a previous round. So it looks like we have about 15 responses so far, and it's about evenly split that this is the first time people have learned about it, and some have learned a little bit about it before, and then just maybe a quarter or so of our participants actually have applied in a previous round. So welcome to those that are new. Hopefully you'll learn a lot today. And those that have learned a little bit, hopefully we'll give you the extra to be able to go ahead and apply this round. And for those that have applied before, we welcome you back. So in round 3, there are a few changes. As we mentioned, this is a Department of Energy grant that we received in this fall of 2023. And so we selected multiple projects last summer, somewhere between 17 and 19 projects to do a variety of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation projects across South Carolina. And our original rounds just were very focused on counties and municipalities. Then we were able to kind of expand that list, and I'll go into that in a minute. And this round, though, we've included state agencies, and we do have additional resources on our website to help with any applications, and we're expanding the application dollar amount from 50 to 75,000 to 50 to 100,000. Doesn't mean you have to apply for 100,000. It just means that's kind of the cap that we're looking at. So those application forms are on our website, and we'll walk through those in a moment. But something else that's a little bit different is we're doing a rolling basis. So after today, if there's anything that you're ready to apply, please do, because we realize that this is going to be a shorter project window than our previous windows. And so we want to give people the opportunity, once we've selected new recipients, to get on the ground and go forward. All right, we'll go to the next one, please. All right, so for some of you who are new to this, there are entities that are not eligible for our program. They were eligible to receive funding directly from the DOE. And so in South Carolina, and this list is on our website as well, there were 25 entities. So there were 10 counties. And if you're in one of those counties, you're still eligible if you're a municipality. It's just anything that's on this list directly is not eligible for our project. So if you have questions, if you're one of these 25 entities, please reach out to DOE directly and see where the status is with their program if you haven't already participated with them. All right, next slide, please. And as I mentioned, these are the types of entities that we're looking for applications from. So keeping it as local as possible. So counties, municipalities, local public authorities, school districts, special districts, council of governments, and even some regional and interstate governmental entities. And then we had a little carve out in our funding to be able to do some limited funding for state agencies. So you're welcome to same types of projects, just from a state agency. All right, go to the next one. All right, I think this is going to be Kayla kind of walking us through the application guidance. Is that correct? All right, so I will kick it to you. Thanks.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So once again, my name is Kayla. I'm an energy specialist at the Energy Office. I'll guide you guys quickly through and comprehensively through our application guidance for EECBG. Once again, these forms are available now on our website. So if you guys would like to just go ahead, open up our website, and you guys can follow through the guidance with me as well as our application later on. Just so you guys can get a comprehensive explanation of what we have going on with the ECBG. All right, next slide, please. So there are a few considerations to think about before applying to EECBG for this third round. The biggest one is that our projects must be completed by June 30th of 2026. That means if you were to submit your application in December, by December, you would only have about approximately 6 months to complete your project and submit your final reimbursement. So that is a pretty quick turnaround as opposed to our first 2 rounds. But that's just to make sure that we can reach our federal deadline to have all of the money for EECBG expended by our federal deadline to DOE. Some other things to consider is that the EECBG program is based off of reimbursements. So that means that you will have to expend your money first and then request for a reimbursement request from us if you are awarded, and we will be able to reimburse you the funds that you were able to spend from your EECBG award grant. Also, the procurement process is all on the subrecipient. The Energy Office does not have any hand or take in kind of how you guys go about your procurement process. That is purely left up to the subrecipient and kind of how your municipality, your county, your school district handles procurement. Also, for maintenance of records and audit requirements, we do require for you guys to submit quarterly reports. So that means you will have to submit a quarterly report worksheet, as well as a reimbursement form, just to ensure that we're not missing out on any reimbursement requests you guys will be asking from us. And then also, because it is a shorter deadline, we will be kind of doing monthly phone calls for updates with the subrecipients if they are chosen. Making sure I'm not missing anything. So for project permits, that's kind of the similar process as procurement. We just want to make sure that if your project does require permits, you will have to get those permits on your own. The Energy Office will not be assisting in getting any permits for your project. That's something that will be left up to the subrecipients. And then I'll be able to go into the federal requirements a little bit later on. But because this is a federal award, you do have to follow some federal award requirements that will just require a bit more submission of different types of forms on top of the quarterly report and your reimbursement request forms. Next slide, please. So along with submitting your application, we do have to grade it somehow. So we do have a bit of some selection criteria involved with selecting our EECBG awards. So the first two are savings and impact. So kind of looking at your expected energy savings and emission reductions, as well as simple payback period and expected useful life of the project and its impact. Both of those you'll be able to fill out. It will require some technical analysis based off of what you currently have and what you're possibly replacing it with, or what you're planning on installing, or anything in regards to your potential project. So it will require a bit of mathematics and some technical analysis on your end, but we do have some resources available to kind of help you out with that as well, and I'll go into that later on as well. And we do look at feasibility. Oh, go back one slide, please. Thank you. We also are looking at feasibility, so the ability to complete your project within the specific timeline and budget. So we are really harping on that June 30th timeline for a deadline for this round of EECBG. So making sure that your timeline is comprehensive within your application so that we can understand that you will be able to complete your project within that June 30th timeline is really important. Also, the location, Energy Office, and community interest. We want to make sure that we are able to spread the wealth of what the Energy Office is able to offer with funding opportunities throughout this state. So we will be kind of looking at where we have funded projects before, and if there's been an application where we haven't been able to fund them before and they have a really good kind of project idea and application on our doorstep to see if we're able to fund something like that. So that is something that also we are interested in as well. Also innovation, so utilizing new and creative ideas, methods, technologies, and or partnerships. So for example, if you are a city and you are installing EV chargers and it's the first set of EV chargers within your city or the first set of EV chargers within your county, that is very innovative. That's something new within your community that your community hasn't been able to utilize before. So that's some innovative ideas that we're looking at as well as partnerships. You can partner with, if you're a municipality or school district, you can partner with your county, or counties can partner with their COGs. There's a lot of partnership opportunities you guys can utilize as well with the ECBG. And then lastly, we're going to be looking at resilience, so compatibility with current or future infrastructure to support a community's ability to anticipate, absorb, recover, and thrive when presented with environmental change and natural hazards. So that's something that you would include inside of your environmental benefits portion of your application. And that's just making sure that we can understand that you guys are thinking ahead when you are installing these new projects into your county and municipality. You want to make sure that these aren't just one-time useful projects, that you guys are going to be able to utilize them in instance of disaster or any kind of instances where your community would really be able to utilize this new resource. And next slide, please. And to kind of assist with some of that technical analysis that would be needed inside of your application, we have been able to provide you all with a supplemental information sheet that is also available on our website. So our supplemental information sheet guides to inform what type of supplemental information that we, the Energy Office, would need to perform technical analysis. So it would be fantastic if you're able to provide that information for us. However, it is really finicky with the numbers, and there's a lot of information that is needed to be able to give us accurate information regarding to your energy savings, useful life, and savings simple payback period. That's what it is. So on that worksheet, and we'll be able to kind of go through what that worksheet will look like a little bit later on in the presentation. You'll be able to provide us with basically the product specifications of what you currently have and what you're planning on to replace it with. The specifications of if you were to install solar, door weatherization, HVAC units, kind of anything under the sun that will fall under the umbrella of an eligible project for EECBG. We're able to provide some of that information that we would need to be able to accurately be able to score your application. So it's not a comprehensive list. It's just some of the things that we've been seeing more commonly across the board with all our funding opportunities that you'll be able to utilize this worksheet for. Next page, please. And jumping right back to our federal funding requirements, these are the 4 that we are going to be, that DOE is requiring for all of their subrecipients to adhere by. So the first one is Buy American, Build American. However, we are able to apply for waivers if the total project, excluding EECBG, if the total project is less than $250,000. So if you are planning on using $100,000 of EECBG, but the total project exceeds $250,000, you will not be eligible for that waiver. So if you are not eligible for that waiver, you will have to, if you are using kind of any hardware or steel products or any type of infrastructure like that, it will have to be American made, and we will have to require documentation and proof that that is an American made product. Also, Davis-Bacon. So that's just making sure that you guys are paying your contractors prevailing wages for the geographical location. Historic Preservation and NEPA, so the National Environmental Policy Act. For historic preservation, buildings that are 50 years old will have, and if they are not inside of the exclusion categories, we will have to kind of submit a form to the Historic Preservation Agency, and they will have to do a review to ensure that you guys are not going to mess up any type of historical fixtures or anything like that inside of those places. And then similarly with NEPA, is the consideration of environmental impacts. So basically, if you're breaking ground, or if once again your project does not fall within our exclusion categories, then we will have to submit a form to the EPA where they'll be able to review and make sure and provide recommendations on how to ensure that your project does not kind of violate NEPA. But once again, because we have such short deadlines, both of those reviews can take some time. And you cannot begin your project if historic preservation or NEPA reviews are not complete. So that's something else to consider when you are applying for EECBG for this round as well. Next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it on back to Rochelle to kind of walk through the application form.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kayla. And I know we're going through some of this very quickly, but some of these items are in our previous webinars. We've gone into some of those details before, and we hope that there's more of this information in print. So if you need to look through it some more, but we just really want to highlight some of the opportunities. We can go to the next slide. So some key components to include in your application is your lead organization, if you're going to partner with anyone, but also who that project coordinator is. So that's the person that's going to interface with the energy office and be doing those monthly updates and any questions about the reimbursement or project monitoring. And so then look through that project description. So we're going to talk about project categories in just a moment and some of those, the overview, the metrics, and the site information. But there's in that, as Kayla had mentioned on our website, we have the form with the application. And so we're hoping that we're asking the questions for you to be able to go through and just fill in as those questions are. So just fill something into every box and help provide those details. And so a proposed project budget. Sometimes And that's where you're going to be looking at that 50 to 100,000. We recognize that once you get into the project, sometimes the categories shift a little bit and we'll work through those. But as far as that overall budget, that's kind of what you're going out and maybe getting quotes and things like that. And then that project timeline, yes, it is shorter, but we've had several projects that closed in that same amount of time from our first 2 rounds. So feel comfortable that that is a possibility to be able to do it in a short window. And then we'll need whoever is that signature for your organization. So that isn't necessarily the project coordinator, but like the county administrator or something like that to be able to sign and show the obligations on that application. So let's go to the next one. As I mentioned, DOE had provided 14 categories for the EECBG program, and from that we selected 8 of them, and they're on the right-hand side of the screen. And so we have strategy, development, and implementation. And so it has to be coupled with implementation. In our project, we wanted to be able to see things that end up on the ground. So if you already were planning to do some strategic development, then you can go ahead, you would look at implementation. So several of the projects that we'll give some examples of did energy efficiency retrofit grants for government agencies. So being able to retrofit instead of something new. And then the conservation of transportation energy, that's the part where we talk about electric vehicles. And those were some of the ones that we saw more of, these first 2 or second 2 categories. And then some of the other ones are like building codes and inspection services, reduction, capture, and use of landfill gases, replacement of traffic signals and street lighting. And we had another project that did on-site renewable energy on or in a government building. And then, of course, kind of a catch-all with the programs for financing and purchasing there on the last one. And we can go to the next slide. So one of the ones that we talked about, I think Kayla mentioned about including these metrics and to help us, because we're trying to see energy savings. And so this is one of the ways that we look at it, is how much, funding is used and how much energy is saved over the life of the project and going forward. And so to assist with some of those calculations, we have a link to the EPA's greenhouse gas equivalency calculator on our website. There's also, I think in webinar 2, we go over that in a little bit more detail. So if you want to have a step-by-step through on that process. All right, and then we can go to the next slide. And these are the worksheets that Kayla mentioned. I think we have about 10 different ones. And so we try to find the things that really help key in on the details that you would need. And so in this example for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning or HVAC units, looking at what do you currently have, what's the age of it, what's the efficiency in that one, and then what would you be replacing, and kind of. And so sometimes the consultant or the vendor would be able to provide you those details. So it's not something that you might have a facilities manager that can help you find those types of details. But again, there can be project ideas that aren't included in these worksheets. We just tried to kind of give you the types of information that help us assist with any calculations that might be needed to be able to see those energy savings across the life of the project, because that's important to us. All right, now I think I'm giving it back. This is my favorite part of the whole presentation, to see some of these projects that we already funded and have already completed. So Kayla, I'm excited to hear more.
All right, and if I miss out on anything, please just go ahead and hop in for me.
Sure thing.
So for US DOE EECBG blueprints, so the DOE, they were able to provide EECBG subrecipients with a set of blueprints. EECBG for South Carolina, we were able to locate, as they were removed from the DOE website, we were able to locate a few of them or most of them to kind of assist with your application process for round 3 of the ECBG. So these blueprints, they're not very comprehensive, but they are able to kind of assist with, if you are kind of selecting one of those 8 categories, they're able to kind of assist with basically building your application and making sure that it's viable for DOE to approve, because these projects, they do have to be approved by DOE before we can award them. So utilizing the DOE blueprints can help your application become a bit more comprehensive and are able to give us a bit more information that we will be able to use to give towards DOE to ensure that a project is eligible to be awarded. You are not required to use them. However, they are very, very, very helpful if you're just not even sure where to start. You can kind of take a look at these blueprints. They kind of give you an overall basis of what people are looking for if you are planning on installing solar, if you're planning on installing EVs, if you're planning on doing a building retrofit. All those type of projects, they are encompassed inside of those blueprints. So we really, really want you guys to utilize them. As it was a little bit hard for us to track them down, so we want you guys to use them to the best of your abilities. Anything else about the blueprints, Rochelle?
No, I think that's great. I think the big point is that DOE does, it helps them with their review if a blueprint's been used. So that can speed up that process. So just anything to shorten that timeline.
All right, next slide, please. So a bit more about our EECBG webpage, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have already visited, but there are links on the very far right-hand column to the US DOE eligible categories. And when we say US DOE, it means the United States Department of Energy. So they do have some eligible categories, their blueprints, as well as electric vehicle, EV vehicle information for public entities in South Carolina. So if you're planning on, if you are a state agency and you are planning on purchasing an electric vehicle, then there is some information about there about how you are able to do that in regards to being a state agency in South Carolina. We also have the recordings, PowerPoints, and the agenda for all 3 of our previous think tanks. And all of them, they were encompassing, we have panelists from previously awarded EECBG participants from DOE, as well as just overall information from our previous application and guidance that just they haven't really shifted too much. So if there is a bit more information you would like to hear more about the application or the guidance, please check out those last 3 think tanks, as well as if you would like some further project ideas, there are some more project ideas in those think tank webinars as well. Next slide, please. So a few of our EECBG highlights from our last 2 rounds, as we have been able to successfully close out on a good bit of our award grants. As Rochelle mentioned, a lot of them were able to finish within that 6-month time frame. So the first 2 that we're going to go over are our clean transportation projects. We do have a few more out there, but these are just the ones that are closed out at the moment. So we do have Calhoun County. They were awarded $39,000 or almost $40,000 to install 6 level 2 Tesla universal chargers at their sports complex. So they're universal chargers. They worked with their utility, actually. So they worked with Dominion Energy to install those EV chargers. And they're universal. So they charge Teslas as well as you can see, it was able to charge our Chevy Bolt and a bunch of other different types of vehicles as well. And then Charleston County, they were awarded 2 separate grant awards. So they were awarded $74,590 and an additional $67,941 to purchase 3 electric vehicles for their fleets. And all 3 are pictured here. So that's kind of a way to incorporate some more alternative fuels into your fleet if you're interested in that. So we're not just electric vehicles. If you're interested in purchasing any other type of alternative fuel outside of just a regular ICE vehicle, then we're more than able to take a look at those kind of clean transportation projects as well.
And I think ICE means internal combustion engine, if you're not familiar.
Yes, not the other one. All right, next slide, please. All right, and then we also were able to fund some heating, ventilation, and air conditioning replacements. So short word for HVAC. So Town of Kershaw, they received $162,883 $33,000 to fund 2 projects with the ECBG. We were able to upgrade 8 HVAC units and 5 HVAC units, well, 8 total, but 5 HVAC units, and install smart thermostats at their golf course and install new energy efficient windows at 3 of their facilities. And then as well as Newberry County, they were awarded over $100,000 to replace 13 HVAC units at 7 locations across the county, as well as installing smart thermostats. So these are really, really big projects. And previously, the projects were capped at $75,000, but it is pretty flexible, not too flexible this time around, but it is pretty flexible. But we do try to keep it within that price range of the maximum amount that we're able to fund. But yeah, these are some of those bigger, yes.
I was just gonna say it was 13 in Kershaw, so it was 2 locations, 8 in one and 5 in a different location. So, but yeah, so we've been able to do both. So yeah, really great stuff.
Yeah. All right, next slide. And then we've also were able to do some solar panel installation. So the city of Ala Palms, they were able to install a 17.4 kilowatt solar array on their public works building. And that project itself cost about $67,000. And then some other project ideas. So these 2, so for Goose Creek, they were awarded the US DOE EECBG funding. And then the city of Darlington, they were awarded our concert fund loan, which is also housed through South Carolina Energy Office. However, these types of projects, they are able to encompass basically what EECBG is looking for in regards to project ideas, as well as multiple other types of funding opportunities through the Energy Office, such as mini grants and concert fund that we house through the Energy Office as well. But these include lighting retrofits. So lighting retrofits, building retrofits, weatherization, ductwork. There's a lot of other types of kind of anything that involves energy efficiency, clean transportation, and renewable energy. They're eligible for EECBG as well as our other South Carolina Energy Office funding opportunities as well. So the city of Darlington, they were able to retrofit 6 of their buildings. You can kind of see the before and after of kind of upgrading some of those light fixtures and those light bulbs from, I'm not sure what it was before, but I'm assuming they are LEDs now. And then Goose Creek, they received their federal voucher from DOE, which was their total award amount from DOE of $76,520 to do LED replacements at their county complex, including City Hall and their court. All right, and I'm going to toss it back to Rochelle.
Thank you, Kayla. Great job. And just sharing all the great successes we've had for South Carolina. And so, like I said, we mentioned several of those projects that we showed you have completed, and there's a few more that are about to wrap up. They're getting ready to have their final monitoring visit, and then we'll be able to share their success stories. So we're excited about it. But if we can go to the next slide. I don't think we've had any questions yet. But, if you feel free to drop some questions into the Q&A and we can, or the chat, but the Q&A is something, and so we'll kind of look here. So Chris, I see your question about the funding for state agencies is limited. Is it advisable that these agencies request a more modest amount rather than the cap if they have a larger project? That's kind of, it's going to be up to you, I guess, as part of it, but it is kind of, again, on a rolling basis, and so kind of the faster people are able to get their applications in, then we can go ahead and review and see if they meet the criteria. So I'm not really sure if I can guide as far as the amount, but we're just trying to make sure we get the funding out to South Carolina before our project ends. We're hopeful that we can do the reimbursement by June 30th. Okay, excuse me, I should read the question because I realize it's not going to be in the recording. So the question is, do expenditures have to be reimbursed by June 30th, or will there be a cleanup period during which reimbursements can be requested for expenditures that occur prior to June 30th? We're going to try hard to be able to do all reimbursements by June 30th. We, in our project, are able to do a time extension. That's a request to DOE. We just don't know what that process would look like. So it would be advisable, if it's possible, to finish the project by the 30th. I would stick with that. Obviously, we had a pause in funding earlier this year, and so we've had to make adjustments based on that. So we'll get down that, but I would focus on trying to get done by June 30th. All right, we have another question. What is the average turnaround time from application to notification of award? That's a good question, because our last round we had a close date. So this is a new process for us, doing the rolling application period. So we will, I can't give you a firm time frame, but we're trying to have as much done by the end of the year as possible. So hopefully the sooner the projects that are done, in October, we'll be able to let you know even sooner. Once we've selected a project, we do have to give DOE a 30-day window before we're able for them to make any final changes. So that helps you know that it would be at least a couple of months from the time we receive an application before we would award it. But I would hope that we would have them by the end of the year. All right, are there any examples of the strategic development and implementation or building codes and inspection service project categories? Not completed projects for the strategic development and implementation. We do have one that's doing that right now. And then the building codes, we didn't have any applications from that. So I would just lean into looking at those blueprints that we have on our website to give you some guidance on those. The next question is, there are two questions in the Q&A, and we'll look in the Q&A in just a second. All right, and the South Carolina Department of Education owns and manages the state's school bus fleet. Is the Department of Education an eligible entity for clean transportation project? Yes, they are eligible. All of our state agencies are eligible. I do know that there's been a lot of bus electrification, but there may be some other options that are not just electrification. So, but yeah, definitely let's have a conversation and look at that. All right, let me jump over to the Q&A for a moment. Okay, I do not see those questions. Oh wait, let me look in just a moment. Okay. Can you confirm that projects must meet the minimum of 50,000, or if a smaller project can be considered? At this point, we'd like to see the 50,000, just because we're trying to get our projects out. But if you've got a really great bang up project, please put it, let us know about it, because there's also other funding sources like our mini grant program, that if we're not able to do the EECBG, we might recommend you to do the mini grant program. So please share, because we're, again, trying to make sure good use of these federal funds before our project ends in October of 26. Are entities awarded in prior rounds eligible to apply for new projects in round 3? Yes, they are eligible to apply, and if they're awarded from prior rounds. And then just to clarify, so good question. Just to clarify, is the Buy American, Build American not required if the project is under 250,000? No, it is still required, but last year we were able to submit an application or to receive a waiver. It's called a small grants waiver from DOE on each individual project. And so one of our projects, their total project was over, their funding amount was over the 250,000. For those that were below the 250,000, those waivers DOE gave small grant waivers to the rest of those projects. So regardless, we have to review for BABA of the full project, but if it's less than 250,000, then we can request those waivers and can usually shorten the time to complete that project. But we also want to be careful that, just because it needs to be a true less than 250,000, it doesn't need to be two projects combined that each project is less than, but together they're going to be more than the 250,000. Then that too would be, it would still have to fall under BABA. All right, let me look and see. I'll hop back to the chat and just see if we've got anything else there. All right. I think those are all the questions that I see so far. We're gonna keep the chat open for a bit, so we'll go on to our next question. And Kayla and Chanel, you haven't seen any other things that I haven't answered yet, do you? Okay, great. So as we mentioned, our website is a wealth of information, and it's just on the our Energy Office webpage under the EECBG tab with our funding. And so we're going to at least do a frequently asked questions document, potentially following up on some of these questions. And if there's anything we need to clarify on those, we're hoping to have allocated the funding before December 1st, but that is our deadline on the rolling one. So if you have questions, email them to our customer service line. It's energycs@ors.sc.gov, and we'll compile those questions into a frequently asked questions document so that it's available for people to look at as they look at applying. So we can look at the next slide. I know Kayla had mentioned it earlier, but we really want you to look at those other recordings. Obviously, our guidance has tweaked a little bit this time around. We've had a little bit of changes on some of the federal, but our overall grant is still the same. So definitely project ideas, or you could glean from those, and just again, the more details that we may not have spent as much time on this time. And then we hope to have this webinar up fairly soon. So if you have colleagues that missed this one, please share, and so that they're aware as well. Okay, I do see another question. Okay, so we have a question about, is the maximum allocation 100,000? I heard something about 250,000. Okay, so for our projects, we're not doing a match, so it's we're looking to grant somewhere between 50 and 100,000 per project. So if you as an organization decide to have match in some form or fashion, then that project would bring the project total up to 250,000. So anything that's above 250,000, we still have to, well, anything, as I mentioned a moment ago, BABA has to be reviewed for any of the projects. But if it's below total project, our 50 to 100,000 plus whatever your organization contributes is below 250,000, then we can submit to DOE a request to have a small grants waiver. And so yes, ours again, and it's on in our application. I think it does have the window of the amount that we're looking to award is between 50 and 100,000. So, and obviously we had one project that got selected that was just under 40,000 and stuff. But yeah, get those quotes from the different installers and things like that, as far as to help you determine what the amount is. But if you've already made plans to do a lighting retrofit, then your county might be able to use some of that project for the thing. All right, so I have another question. So the question is there a cost share for this grant? No, we do not require cost share. Now, if if it makes your project more viable that you have a cost share, that might be something that helps when we're reviewing it. Or if you're able to do it all just with the funding from the ECBG program, if that's a standalone project, then that's fine too. So some of our other project ones don't require a match, but do require that there is some maybe the slang term would be skin in the game. So, all right. All right, let me check the Q&A before we go on to the next slide. All right, I don't see anything else in the Q&A. Right, so let's go on to the next one. All right, so please submit those complete applications as quickly as you can, because it will take us a moment to review them. And one of the pieces that we do in our process is to go to the EAC, or the Energy Advisory Council or Committee, with those that we've selected. So again, as I mentioned earlier, will still take us a couple months to get those projects fully vetted and fully reviewed, but it is open until we've allocated that funding that we have remaining. So if you have any other questions, again, I recommend you email the Energy CS at ors.sc.gov. And if you feel comfortable, feel free to go ahead and submit that application, and we'll let you know that we receive the application. You'll get an email back. So if you don't get one, do let us know, an email back. That is. So are there any other questions? Any other thoughts, Kayla or Chanel or Sarah? I can unmute you, Sarah, if you we're really excited. We're about this. We, again, happy to be able to share some funds for energy efficiency and renewable energy and clean transportation in South Carolina, and to see those on the ground projects that are available. So with that, I appreciate everyone's time this afternoon, and we will thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.